here's our host, Tянь Wэй.
Hello and welcome to World Insight on CGTN. I'm Tянь Wэй. Today we bring you PLA military drills and appropriate response, one of the three special programs on U.S. House Speaker Nэнsi Pelosi's sneaky visit to Taiwan and China's response. The Chinese People's Liberation Army has launched its largest military exercises around Taiwan since Thursday, while China's defense ministry says U.S. House Speaker Nэнsi Pelosi's visit to Taiwan is a serious political provocation to China. It says the ongoing military drills are a solemn deterrence against the U.S.-Taiwan connection. The drills include a joint blockade, sea target assaults, an airspace control operation, as well as a showcase of the joint operations between the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The drills are in 6 strategic areas that encircle the island of Taiwan. Here's a look at those areas.
First is the eastern coast of Pintan Island, a part of the Chinese mainland's southern province of Fujian. Pintan lies about 127 kilometers from Taiwan Island and is also the narrowest part of the Taiwan Strait. 2 areas are off the northern and northeastern coast of Taiwan. They're just outside the open waters facing Keelung Port, which means that the port has been encircled. Live fire drills will also take place off Taiwan Island's eastern coast, directly facing the military bases of Taiwan in the cities of Hualien and Taitung. 2 other areas are in the south. One is southeast of the city of Canting, which enables the PLA to hold a strategic point of the Bashi Channel. Another one is southwest of the island that closes maritime routes and airspace of the city of Kaohsiung. The 6 areas where this week's live-fire military exercises are being held are the closest the PLA has ever carried out near Taiwan.
How would you describe the scale, the depth, and also the sophistication of this live fire drill?
Well, I think this training exercise organized and conducted by the PL Eastern Theater Command is the largest in the history compared with the previous exercises that was directed against Taiwan Island. First, we can see there are 3 areas for the joint drills around the Taiwan Island, and simultaneously we conducted exercises, live fire firing, and also ballistic missile firing, and all these rocket guns and the ballistic missiles hit targets, and their accuracy is exciting. We can see that all the targets were hit by this, and I think this demonstrated the determination and also the capability of the Chinese PLA to protect the country's interests or to uphold China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. I think from these 6 locations around Taiwan, we can see that actually we can blockade the island if necessary. If the Taiwan independence separatists want to isolate or split Taiwan from the mainland.
The People's Liberation Army's Eastern Theater Command has started a series of joint operations in the air and water surrounding Taiwan. The PLA says the operations are necessary moves against the dangerous actions by the U.S. and Taiwan independence forces on the Taiwan question.
The operations will unfold systematically and extensively with multiple military forces. The operations include targeted and live-fire precision weapon drills, like joint blockades, air-to-ship attacks, air-to-land strikes, and air control operations. The operations will fully test the weapon and equipment capacity and Army's joint operational ability. We will be ready for any crisis. We sternly warn those who travel to Taiwan with sinister plots and Taiwan independence forces that the Eastern Theater Command has full confidence and ability to defeat any provocations, and we will firmly safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity.
I think the responses by the PLA the so-called, I think, targeted military operations in response to the provocative Taiwan visit by Nэнsi Pelosi is justified and necessary. It is justified in the sense it is purely out of self-defense, out of the need to defend and safeguard China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It is, I think, justifiable in the sense that the United States has broken its commitment to China on the question on Taiwan. And more importantly, I think despite China's repeated efforts diplomatically to persuade, to stop this visit, the United States just went ahead and caused such a crisis and a tension, a threat to the region. So China's move, the PRA's move, the military operations targeted one, not only I think meant to defend China's sovereignty, but more equally important is meant to safeguard, to defend peace and stability in the region.
The joint military operations are arguably the most intense of all. There are several outstanding features. For example, for the first time, we encircled the entire Taiwan island, forming a closed siege of the island. For the first time, we sent a carrier formation to conduct deterrent exercises at sea to form a three-dimensional combat system. Generally speaking, carrier formation exercises were often accompanied by underwater activities carried out by nuclear submarines. Moreover, not only did forces of the Eastern Theater Command join the exercise, but also forces from other theaters, including a high degree of close cooperation between the various theaters.
PRA, just as other countries' military, its duty is to safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity. So I think during the routine, on the daily basis, the PRA conducted routine training to sharpen its combat capabilities to fight against possible enemies that for intrusion, invasion, or for suppression against the separatist forces on Taiwan.
What is the significance of this specific theater command?
Well, we know that the PRA Eastern Theater Command is facing Taiwan, so its geographical task is to be prepared for any possible combat operations against Taiwan, or in case the Taiwan separatists declare independence. We know that during this recent round of national defense and military reform, we set up 5 combat theater commands. That the Eastern Theater Command is one of the 5, and they cover the area of responsibility is covering Taiwan. So, and its main task is to prepare for operations tactics may be used in this area. But there's other theater commands also prepare their operations tactics for defense of the motherland.
Question of Taiwan has been very much of focus of attention for the rest of the world. The foreign ministers of G7 nations, though, called on China Wednesday to solve tension around the Taiwan Strait in a peaceful manner. China has blasted the attitude of the G7, saying it exposes, quote, hypocrisy and ugliness of their governments, end of quote.
China firmly opposed this statement because it confuses black and white, confuses right and wrong, and blatantly whitewashes the infringer. It makes groundless accusations against the defenders and exerts political pressure on them. Where is the justice? What are the basic norms of international relations? Non-interference in internal affairs is the most basic principle for maintaining peace and stability in our world. We should not allow the law of the jungle to dominate our state-to-state relations. I believe this statement is just a piece of paper of no significance.
我相信这个所谓的 及其声誉只是废纸一张。
If these countries really care about peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, they should have persuaded the United States not to engage in dangerous, reckless, and irresponsible provocations against China. Before Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, they pretended to be deaf and silent, but now they jump out to criticize China's just actions, exposing their hypocrisy and ugliness.
And also, I think for the international community to understand the gravity of this situation and also the determination of China to defend and safeguard its national interest. But I'd also have to be very clear, these responses, these targeted military operations were aimed at these separatist forces. These forces, these politicians in the United States and others, for the sake of their own personal agenda and interest to create trouble, to destroy peace in the region. So it has been that's why I think China has made it very clear the moves, the responses is, on the one hand, it's a self-defense. On the other hand, it is meant to defend peace and stability in the region. There are so many cases in the past, now, and I think in the future that these kind of sort of a situation, if not dealt with properly, it can easily spread out of control. And it is sheer sort of a kind of force for the G7 foreign minister to speak irresponsibly about China, making remarks like that. Remember, just a few months back, when the Ukraine crisis broke out, it was them who forced the international community on the sort of excuse of sovereignty and territorial integrity. When China's sovereignty and territorial integrity is undermined, now they are talking about the exercise of restraints, they are talking about the calm. It's totally nonsense, it's totally rubbish, and hypocritical and double standard.
How much should the rest of the world try to understand the history related to the question of Taiwan before they make their judgment?
The countermeasures the Chinese government has taken and also the Chinese PRA are taking aimed against the U.S. provocation against China, especially taken place by Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. And also, I think this is necessary and justified for a sovereign state like China to do so. We know that in history, the United States fought a civil war to maintain or safeguard national sovereignty and unity. So why China can't do this? Now, Taiwan is part of China, and this is recognized by most of the countries in the world. 181 countries have established diplomatic relations with China, with the precondition or the foundation, political foundation, is that they recognize
with China, the People's
China
Republic
principle.
of China, and
Yes.
the United Nations recognize
Yes.
the People's Republic of China. You're watching our special program, PLA's Military Drills and Appropriate Response. U.S. House Speaker Nэнsi Pelosi's visit to Taiwan has aroused some dissent within American society. U.S. President Joe Biden allegedly tried to stop but apparently failed. Some say that the Biden administration was complicit in Pelosi's trip going ahead. Is that the case? Let's listen to Professor Susan Thornton's analysis.
It's no accident that there hasn't been a Speaker of the House visit in 25 years. So to try to say that the Speaker of the House visiting Taiwan is a routine occurrence is clearly not factually correct. And so I think that, there could be an understanding established that this is not a routine matter. There's a domestic political calculation here. And I think that is what comes into play increasingly as we see our domestic politics get more and more kind of divided, and we see sort of an increase in the volatility of politics in the United States. So it's possible that we, will see more of this. I also note that, Kevin McCarthy, who's the sort of minority leader in the House has already said he wants to go to Taiwan if he becomes speaker. So, you know, it is difficult. It is going to be difficult to try to, you know, manage this, especially with U.S.-China relations at such a low level.
One could argue we manage it pretty well. Why do we want to change the earlier path and earlier rhetorics and actions and become what it is? Why? Is it only because of the strategic confrontation and competition that the U.S. sees about China?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right in that. I think that the earlier crises were managed because the U.S.-China relationship was in a place where both sides valued the relationship and they valued the communication and the collaboration that they had within the relationship. What we're going to have to do is get U.S.-China relations back into a place where we can have these constructive dialogues. We can turn the tone of U.S.-China relations away from this constant drive toward negativity. We actually have too many crises on a plate that are not about U.S.-China relations and too many challenges to tackle, and that we need to work together. And I hope that we're seeing that evolution. And if we see that evolution, I think that will override a lot of this negative repercussions for the relationship that come from that.
And that's all we have for our special program, PLA Military Drills and Appropriate Response. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of our CGTN team. Thanks for being with us. Bye.